Is health already a concern for the Baltimore Ravens with rookie injuries already piling up? We talk about that and so much more coming up next year on this episode of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on as well. Also, in audio form, if you want to listen anywhere you get your podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole 9 yards there. You can follow along, subscribe. We're 5 days a week of Ravens content, Monday through Friday. So Ravens news, analysis, updates, and so much more. Again, 5 days a week plus more. We do some bonus content as well, live stream. So a lot going on here on Locked On Ravens, even in the offseason. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go. The mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Plan to talk about here today for the Baltimore Ravens, as again, we're in that low period of the offseason, but that does not mean there is nothing to talk about. Rookie minicamp, we talked a lot about that on yesterday's show, but I do want to expand on a point, or a couple of points at least, that were talked about the health situation, mostly because I've seen this take a couple of times on social media here and there, and I did want to talk about it because there are storylines about some of these Ravens rookies already getting injured. So is health a concern already for the Baltimore Ravens? We'll talk about it. I'll give my opinion on it. And it goes into a couple of other things as well, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about Keaton Mitchell a little bit as well. Obviously not a rookie, but talking about the health situation for Baltimore. And look, training camp's still in a couple months. So that's a little hint of what my opinion is on the whole topic, and we'll talk about it. In the second part of the show, we'll take a look at some 2024 rookie class expectations, something I plan to expand on a bit more in a different episode, but I did want to just talk about it a bit here today. This isn't necessarily about the players individually. It's more so as a whole group, a whole class, but we will dive into some of the player expectations a bit too. Then we'll talk about if the Ravens need another edge, sign a veteran guy, or are they set in the pass rushing department? So, lots to dive into today. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the health situation. John Harbaugh spoke to the media on Saturday for rookie minicamp, gave a couple of updates. Rasheen Ali had a bicep injury at the Senior Bowl, so that was not a new thing. Said that he should definitely be ready for training camp, and that's not a thing. He was doing some of the other drills. Obviously, wasn't a full participant, but Harbaugh did not seem concerned about his training camp availability. But Adisa Isaac, with a hamstring injury, suffered at practice. Bo Braid was in a walking boot. He apparently suffered an ankle injury in practice. So concerns with health, I think, is being it's there in the fan base right now. I've certainly seen it. I don't know if you have, but I know I have. And so that's why I wanted to come in here and address it. Is health a concern for the Ravens right now? The answer is no. Sure, rookie injuries aren't great, right? I mean, you don't want to see these guys go down, but there was no indication that for Isaac or for Braid or for Ali, as Harbaugh talked about, that those are long-term injuries. Injuries happen even during workouts in any sport. It's football, basketball, baseball, whatever you want to say, injuries happen. We are in May, all right? Today is Tuesday, May 7th. We have a long way to go before the season starts. If we were talking about this in August, and these injuries are starting to pile up, some of the rookie class going down, sure, we could have a different conversation. But at least based off of the concern level that John Harbaugh was showing, which, again, was not very high at all, seems like those guys should be good to go for training camp. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not putting my stamp on that. But as a guess, again, based off John Harbaugh not seeming super concerned about it, sure, it's an injury that happened in May. Obviously, might sideline them for a little bit. But to me, we're having this conversation in May. Like, the injury situation for Baltimore, and we can kind of dive into a little bit of what happened last year, where guys get injured in practice all the time. Look, we can go back to 2021 when Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters go down in a span of 3 plays. That's a little different than rookie minicamp and just kind of getting guys acclimated. But for Adisa Isaac, like, hamstrings can be tough. They can be tricky. Obviously, Bo Braid in a walking boot, not ideal. But those are things, again, we're in May. May to June, June to July, July to August, August to September. That is 4 months essentially that these guys have to heal from those injuries. That essentially is like you get injured at September, maybe you can come back for the stretch run. So injuries are never fun. You lose the reps. It's not great, especially for rookie minicamp, but I'm not sweating over it right now. Again, if we were having these injury conversations in August, in early September, if a couple guys got injured during the game, yeah, sure, we can have conversations about health being a concern, because then at that point, it's all right, now you're in jeopardy of missing some of these games here. And if obviously you get injured during the season, that's a different conversation too. But right now it's 3 guys, right? Lisa Isaac, Bo Braid, and Rasheen Ali. And to me, I expect them all back by training camp not based off of my knowledge, but just based off of the concern level for John Harbaugh. But we can also parlay this into a couple other different conversations. Because what about Keaton Mitchell? Keaton Mitchell is the piece that I think if you're talking about concern, there's some worry about, is Keaton Mitchell going to be able to start the season? Is he going to be able to be back by week 1? Is he going to be on IR, the PUP list? Keaton Mitchell tore that ACL pretty late in the season. What was it, week 15 against Jacksonville? If I'm getting the weeks right in the game. I know it was Jacksonville, but I believe it was week 15, early December there, if I'm not mistaken. That's tough to be back by week 1 for that injury. Everybody's different, though. Different players heal at different rates. For Mitchell, we know that ACL injuries and the recovery times on those injuries based off of just technology and just modern medicine and whatnot, the timeline is sped up. Usually that was about a year injury, and it was very complicated. The recovery rates weren't as high as they are today, again, just based off of the lack of advancement that we now have today. But for Keaton Mitchell, I would probably expect him to start on the PUP list, miss those first 6 games. Then I would probably put him somewhere after in that timeline there. And I think that's fine. Again, you don't want to rush him back. We're going to see. I mean, maybe he is back by training camp and back by week 1. I mean, that obviously is the ideal situation. But to me, it just feels like with that injury. Now, I don't think, I'm trying to remember right. I'll look it up quickly. But I don't think that there were any other complications besides the ACL, if I'm not mistaken. And if that's the case, that is a good thing, because sometimes with some of those really bad injuries, it can be ACL and MCL, PCL, like multiple ligaments torn in that. But luckily, I believe Keaton Mitchell only had the ACL. Again, I'm trying to find it really quickly here. I'm just seeing serious, but I'm pretty sure, regardless, I'm pretty sure it was just the ACL. If it's more, then obviously it'll take more time to heal up. But that injury looked really, really bad when it happened. I mean, you can kind of tell right away it wasn't going to be great. But Keaton's a big, important part of the backfield. And so if you're talking about, health concerns for Baltimore, I'm not focusing on the rookie guys. I'm kind of looking at Keaton Mitchell and saying, well, when's he going to be back? Because he's a big part. And again, Rasheen Ali can go and emulate some of that, but I think Keaton's the fastest guy on the team, and you can't replicate that lightning in a bottle in every single way. It's not a 1-for-1 trade-off there, right? Other guys, though, I mean, for guys like Mark Andrews, who clearly wasn't 100% in the AFC Championship game with his ankle, I think he'll be good to go. I mean, all those other guys, Marlon with his nagging thing, Marcus Williams with his arm, right? I think a lot of, for the majority of the year, is playing with that one arm. He should be fine. Health, to me, the way that health is perceived, especially about the Ravens, right? You can talk about how it's perceived with football, but how it's perceived with the Ravens, especially goes back to what essentially 3 of the last 4 years have been, 4 of the last 5 years have been for the Ravens outside of 2023. And there is a common misconception about Baltimore in 2023. Baltimore, from a season-ending injury perspective, was healthy. Baltimore, from a general injury perspective last year, was not healthy. They had multiple stints with multiple guys missing multiple games. No, they were not out for the season. Guys were able to come back. The only significant players that missed the entire season or had to be put on IR for season-ending injuries last year was J.K. Dobbins, obviously, in week 1, and then David Ojabo with the partially torn ACL. That was essentially it. Mark Andrews came back. Marlon Humphrey missed multiple stints but came back. Marcus Williams missed time, came back. Ronnie Stanley missed time, came back. Odell, Rashad Bateman. There were injuries across the board for the Ravens last season. I'm not saying that, again, they based off of how their seasons went in the past with IR being 20 deep and having all these key players on IR lost for the season, it was a significant change. So in that aspect, yes, Baltimore was much, much, much healthier. And I'm not disputing that. But they also had to have a lot of guys step up over the course of the season because of a lot of the injuries where a guy would miss 2 games or would miss 3 games or 5 or something like that. Then they'd come back. Then maybe they'd go out again. Then they'd come back again. So look, no NFL team is healthy. Honestly, no sports team is healthy for an entire season. Everybody goes through the injuries, and based off what Baltimore dealt with 3 of the past 4 seasons, not named 2023, yeah, they were a lot healthier compared to those years, but they also had to deal with a lot more. So hopefully it's going to be another trend in the right direction for the Ravens. They'll be able to have more guys available for bigger parts of the year. But again, just because a couple rookies got injured in rookie minicamp, health is not a concern. I cannot stress it enough. We're still 4 months out from the season starting, so I have seen the take. I wanted to address it. It was a good show topic, right? And especially at this point in the offseason where, yeah, look, rookie injuries, it is a talking point. So it's good to talk about it, but I do just want to say I'm not concerned about the Ravens' health right now. We're having the conversation in even July, right? I'll even go as far back if we get to July and we're having a conversation about, a guy got injured here. All right, well, what does that mean for his availability to start the season? But we're not there yet. We're early May, so I'm not concerned about it here. Coming up in the second part of the show, we're going to be talking about 2024 rookie class expectations from the whole class perspective. Stay tuned. Lots to get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or robot Pachinko machines. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. We're back. Our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here on this Tuesday, this Taco Tuesday. It was a rough Taco Monday night for me last night. Well, first of all, I had a great time on the Ryan Ripken show, the other show that I'm working with, and Ryan and the crew. It's always fun to chop it up with. Had a crazy story if you want to go watch the end of that live stream. But after that, the Denver Nuggets got absolutely annihilated by the Minnesota Timberwolves. So look, credit to Minnesota. I mean, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy, but Minnesota has looked like the better team so far through 2 games. Denver loses 2 games on their home floor. I'm not expecting Denver to get out of this one, but crazier things have happened. But we're not here to talk about basketball. We're here to talk about football and the Ravens. So let's talk about 2024 rookie class expectations. And as I kind of led in with in the intro to the show, this isn't going to be necessarily just me listing off player expectations. We'll talk about rookie player expectations a little bit in this segment. But it's more so about what I expect or what I think the Ravens should and honestly need to expect from their class as a whole. And there are 2 different ways we can view this, and I'll use the Ravens' past 2 draft classes to kind of explain my point here. When the Ravens had the draft class in 2022, obviously Tyler Linderbaum, Kyle Hamilton, those were the Ravens' big 2 picks. It was reversed. It was Hamilton first, then Linderbaum. But regardless, there were a lot of players in that 2022 class where you could say, all right, this guy could come in, be an instant contributor with Hamilton and Linderbaum leading the way on that mindset. So you had players you immediately could put into a role, and a decent amount of them where you could say, all right, this guy can contribute here, this guy can contribute there, big role for this guy, big role for that guy. Well, 2023 was a little bit of the opposite, where Zay Flowers was essentially the only player that had a huge, huge role for them last season. And, Tavius Robinson was decent. He had a decently sized role, but at that point, it was really Zay, and that was pretty much it. Now, the Ravens could have used more contributions from the rookie class last year, but I think the plan with that class was always let them develop, let them get healthy in the case of Andrew Voorhees, and then it all kind of aligns to have a really solid second-year group that has a year of NFL experience and just being around an NFL team. And then you have a rookie class. And this year, I think Baltimore needs to expect, hopefully, big roles and a lot of contribution. Baltimore needs it, honestly. And this is something we've talked about for the majority of this offseason, even dating back a little bit in season 2, when we were kind of doing some offseason previews before the year ended. It was with Lamar Jackson in a post-rookie contract Lamar Jackson world. And it's not just Lamar, it's all the other contracts they have. They have to hit on their draft picks, especially their mid to late rounders, and they have to rely on veterans. Now, Eric DeCosta, the veteran side of things last year, did a phenomenal job of finding guys that could step in for that year and contribute. Obviously, he was able to bring back a couple in Kyle Van Noy, Arthur Millette, but then he found other guys too, and they went on to get big paydays like Jadeveon Clowney, Ronald Darby, those guys all contributing in a huge, huge way. But with these draft picks, you have Nate Wiggins, who you expect to come in and be a part of that 3-corner rotation with Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens, Roger Rosengarten competing for that starting right tackle job. And I'd probably, I'm not penciling him in for it, but I'd probably deem him the heavy favorite. So that's already two of your first 2 draft picks, both guys probably going to have a pretty significant role here. It's just so needed for them, because gone are the days where Baltimore can just go and have the option to hand out so many huge contracts. Your Baltimore, I believe, has about $7-ish million in cap space left, and there are always opportunities to create more. I'm not saying Eric DeCosta can't get a little clever with the cap and everything and go out there and try to free up some more money, but at this point, the Ravens have a couple other needs that they need to address in some areas that they didn't draft. I mean, the guard position was one. A lot of people expected the Ravens to go out there, and they drafted Rosengarten in the 2nd round. But I think maybe, and I kind of said this on Locked On Ravens, hey, could they go and take 2 offensive linemen with their first 3 picks? And so you expect, okay, well, they took Rosengarten in the 2nd round. Could there be a guard coming down the pipeline in the 3rd round? And to me, the guard, it was so tough. I mean, I would have preferred the Ravens take a guard or a wide receiver as opposed to an edge. I mean, look, Adisa Isaac, I still think great value, but the guard board was kind of depleted. I mean, a lot of guys that the Ravens probably had higher on their board, Christian Haynes and Dominic Puny, Cooper Beebe, all those guys were gone. So if the Ravens didn't have a guy they liked high enough on their board, obviously they're going to go with value in the BPA, which I do agree with. But for some of those other developmental players, like I don't expect Adisa Isaac to have a huge role this season. I mean, maybe they're going to have him step up, but I'd honestly expect him to start the year below Tavius Robinson on the depth chart, maybe as Baltimore's 5th edge guy. And we'll talk about edge in a couple minutes here in the final part of the show about maybe could Baltimore bring in another edge guy, but I don't expect him to have a huge role in his rookie season. And for a 3rd round pick, yeah, it's a balance, because not every single draft pick in every single class is going to develop and start and contribute in year 1. It just doesn't work that way. There, first of all, just aren't enough spots on the football field, right? It doesn't work. But also, no team, at least it's extremely, extremely rare, no team hits on every single draft pick in a class. There are always guys that don't live up to expectations, don't catch on as fast as you need them to. So in a 9-player draft class for Baltimore, I'm not expecting 9 guys to be Pro Bowlers. I'm not expecting 9 guys to be solid NFL players after 2 or 3 years. There are always hits and there are always misses in every single draft class. And that is true with the Ravens. That is true with any other team. That is true with any other sport, honestly, right? I know in basketball, 2 picks, it's easy enough to go 2 for 2 sometimes, but even then it's hard. I mean, you have to do a great job scouting. And look, the Ravens have a great scouting department. They have a formula. It's worked for them over the course of their franchise history. And it's why Baltimore is regarded as one of the top drafting teams in the league. And it's why they've had such a consistent and successful model. And they have to use it here, because Lamar Jackson, every year that the Ravens don't win a Super Bowl, that is a year of Lamar Jackson's prime that is down the drain. We saw it last year. Why does the AFC Championship hurt so much for so many people, including myself? Why does it hurt so much? Because that felt like the team. And it's so hard in any professional sport to go and win a championship, right? I mean, I just talked about the Denver Nuggets there. They got annihilated by the Timberwolves last night. If the Nuggets didn't win the championship last year, it looks like they're going to be 2nd round outs this year. Are they ever going to get back? Like, if they don't win it last year, are they going to get back there? It's so hard consistently, and that's why so many people are still heard about the AFC Championship game, myself included, because of the fact that it felt like that was the roster. It felt like that was the coaching staff, and they still came up short. So that was a year that was wasted. And you feel like, okay, they can get back there because they have the talent, but that doesn't mean it's not hard to get back there. How do you get back with all these big contracts? You not only need those big contract players to step up and play up to those contracts, but you also need the younger guys and the veteran signings to do it. So if you're the Ravens, the formula is, all right, more NFL-ready players potentially, but you also can't think that way fully because the draft is not just about that next year. It's about 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 7 years down the line. So it's such a delicate balance that Eric DeCosta and company have to play. Again, I think they've done overall a very solid job of just navigating it. But to me, when you're talking about this 2024 rookie class and the expectations for this class, again, I'm not saying all 9 guys have to go out there and be Pro Bowlers, but they have to get contributions from more than 2 guys, let's say, right? I think that's a really big key for them this season. I know that was a little bit of a rant. Maybe I'm still riding a little higher from the Nuggets game, but it's true. I mean, for a guy like Lamar Jackson, any guy who's in their prime, you can go across any sport. It's so hard, and things have to line up for you. And it felt like things lined up for that Ravens team last season, and the fact that they just couldn't get it done was so disheartening. It's why literally, like, some people are just coming back to this show after months. I mean, that game was in January. It's been months, and people are just now consuming Ravens content again because of the draft. And it's still so hard for a lot of people to even be brought up. So, I mean, I apologize, but it's a tough truth. And I think Baltimore, they have set themselves up to hopefully have essentially 2 contributing rookie classes in 2023 in their second year in 2024 this year. But again, they're not going to hit on everybody, and that's okay. We can all accept that. No team does, but they do need big contributions from the rookie class this season. Coming up, we're going to be talking about if the Ravens need another edge rusher, who's still out there, the state of the room right now, and more. Stay tuned, plenty to talk about on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's going to take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big one of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So those Denver Nuggets, I'm telling you, maybe people are starting to bet Wolves in 4. Maybe Wolves in 4 on FanDuel right now. I don't know if you want to. The next game for Game 3 is on Friday. So if you're looking at Nikola Jokic props, Anthony Edwards props, you can do it all over there on FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're back. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking here with you. Really appreciate it again for everybody being here today, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every single day. Be sure to subscribe and follow along if you are enjoying the content here. We bring you content 5 days per week on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday. The schedule expected to be released on Thursday, so we'll be doing a live stream for that after it's released, and also diving a lot into who the Ravens are playing that opening game. I know a lot of people have their eyes on what that opening game is going to be. Could it be Kansas City? Could it be Pittsburgh? A lot of exciting things there. So be sure to, again, subscribe in video form and audio form for daily Ravens coverage for an everyday. Or really appreciate you checking in each and every day. If it's your first time in, hopefully you're enjoying the content. Welcome into the channel. And if you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back. Now let's talk about the Ravens. Do they need an edge here? That's the other Ravens topic we're going to be talking about. And it's an interesting one. Let's first dive into the situation at edge for Baltimore right now. You look at their guys. Odafe Oweh had his 5th-year option picked up. They brought back Kyle Van Noy. They still have David Ojabo. And then you talk about Tavius Robinson, Adisa Isaac, Malik Ham in that conversation as well. I think for the Ravens, that's already 6 guys. And usually, I would probably anticipate Baltimore trying to keep 5 edge guys, maybe 6. And if you bring in another guy, so that would be 7. So it's the 6 I just mentioned plus the 1 veteran. Probably Malik Ham is the one to be the odd man out there. Again, Oweh, Ojabo, Van Noy, Robinson, Isaac, they're all making the roster. So, it would leave Malik Ham on the outside looking in. But, who's available? Now, Bleacher Report had a suggestion that the Ravens should sign Yannick Ngakoue, and that's a very familiar face in Baltimore. He was acquired from Minnesota a couple of years ago. Didn't really work out. Now, Ngakoue to me is not good enough as a run defender to be in this Baltimore defense. I think he doesn't fit. Now, the fit was much worse back when he was in Baltimore the first time with Don Martindale. That defense did not do any favors to Yannick Ngakoue. It just wasn't favorable to edge rushers in general. High sack numbers weren't there, were kind of utilized a little bit differently. So, it did a disservice, and I'm not pinning it all on Don Martindale. Obviously, Ngakoue wasn't great as well in Baltimore. I think maybe another option like a Bud Dupree or someone along those lines, maybe that's where Baltimore looks. But I think Baltimore is honestly maybe content. Like if I'm looking at another need, and we'll expand on this in a different episode, but I'm looking probably at safety, where I was a little shocked Baltimore didn't go safety a little earlier in this draft. Now, Beau Braid was someone who was expected to be, a 5th round pick, I think, right around that range. And so them getting him as an undrafted free agent certainly maybe quells some of the need. But if you roll into the year with what you have at safety right now, it is Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams, so you're good at your starting spots. But Geno Stone is now in Cincinnati. Darryl Worley's still a free agent. Maybe you could play Darius Washington back there if you really wanted to. There is a lot of corner safety versatility in today's league, so wouldn't be shocked if Baltimore tried out a couple of different guys in those roles. But there are other pure safety depth guys right now. It is Sanusi Kane, who was a 7th round pick out of Purdue, and Beau Braid, who's an undrafted guy out of Maryland. I mean, that is a risk. It's a risk. It's a real risk to have 2 very young players, 2 rookies, be your big safety depth. And what happens? Marcus Williams, for as healthy as he was during his first 5 years in New Orleans, he's been very injury prone and plagued with injury in Baltimore. So if he has to miss time, you trusting Beau Braid or Sanusi Kane to take over that role. Geno Stone gave the Ravens a lot of room for error because of how good of a replacement he was for Marcus Williams and how well he filled that void up. But how much room for error are you giving some of these young guys? And that's the other thing. We can kind of go back to the second part of the show's topic for just a second here. How much leeway, how much of a leash are you giving these guys if you're John Harbaugh, for especially these younger players? I mean, the Ravens are in a win-now mode. They have to be in a win-now mode. Their roster is built to win now. So if a young guy messes up, when do you say this is enough? When do you say you can't play right now? Now, for guys like Nate Wiggins, obviously the guys like Roger Rosengarten, that doesn't, it still applies. Obviously, you can't just go out there and be terrible and expect to start all the time. But I think it's for more of the middle round picks. For a guy maybe like TJ Tampa or a Devontae Walker, or some of those guys who maybe have to step up because of an injury or something along those lines. When do you go out there and get another veteran? For the edge position, David Ojabo, for example, he's been awesome when he's been on the field. But if he can't stay healthy and the situation there, what do you do with David Ojabo? Really talented player, but just has been snake bitten with injuries. It's really unfortunate. I really hope this is the year he fully breaks out. But essentially, even with a guy like J.K. Dobbins, right? Awesome when he's on the field. But what do you do with a guy that's so uber talented, but injury after injury kind of derails the career there? So to me, I think Baltimore probably sticks with what they have at the edge position. I understand the reasoning for the Ngakoue thing, but I wouldn't go there personally. It wasn't a great fit then. I think it's a better fit now, but it's still not a great fit. Baltimore needs guys who can be solid both in the run game and as a pass rusher at this point. If you want to use him as a situational third down guy, maybe that's what you want. But I think Baltimore, the identity of this defense has kind of moved away from that, where Justin Houston was that guy. But they go to get a guy in Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy, honestly, both guys that we saw could be 3-down players if you wanted them to be, or at least could be on the field in pure run situations. Clowney we knew about. Van Noy definitely surprised me with how good he was. It was a very pleasant surprise. I'm very happy he did it. So to me, never say never, I guess, but I'm personally not tooting the Yannick Ngakoue horn here. I'm probably just saying the Ravens stick with what they have and maybe look to invest their other their other salary capital into maybe safety or guard, or they wait and maybe there's a guy that gets cut. It's unexpected. Maybe there's an unexpected trade that happens. So still so much time in this offseason. Again, we talked about it in the first segment, 4 months away essentially from the opening kickoff, and whether that is a night game, whether that is 1 o'clock kickoff, going to be exciting. Schedule release coming up soon, so be sure to stay tuned for that here on Locked On Ravens, and stay tuned for our Ravens content, obviously on Locked On Ravens 5 days per week, plus more bonus content as well. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, follow along in audio form as well, and obviously video too. It's the same show in audio and video, by the way, so you're not missing out any way you want to listen or watch the show. So I have you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Come up tomorrow, more Ravens content. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.